The collapse of one of the first state capture cases to be prosecuted has been viewed as a major setback for the National Prosecuting Authority. But writing for News 24, Lawson Naidoo says that the NPA leaders Shamila Batohi and Andrea need our support and not our scorn. He is the Executive Secretary of the Council for the Advancement of the South African Constitution, and he joins us now. Lawson, it's great to have you with us as always. This relates to the Nolane case from the Free State. It was brought in the mid-2021. It was a case that formed the basis of the extradition request for the Gupta brothers. For people just getting on board with this, why did it fall apart?
Well, basically, the judge in the case, in a judgment handed down last week, was very scathing of the investigation that was conducted, as well as of the prosecution that was brought by the NPA in this matter. The judge basically said that there was no case to answer for the defendants, and they were acquitted without having to give evidence in defense. It was a really shoddy investigation, and it was a matter that should probably never have been enrolled until proper evidence had been collated by the team. And these are questions that need to be answered by both the Hawks and by the NPA. But I think it highlights a couple of things, Francis. One, in that this case was, the investigation was started during the state capture era when Burning International was still the head of the Hawks, and he would have undoubtedly had a hand in appointing the investigating officers in this matter. And we can therefore probably see that the legacy of state capture is still very much at large. The second point is that the investigating directorate in the NPA needs to have full powers of investigation itself and not simply rely on officers seconded from the police service or from the Hawks. They would then have proper control of that. The president has given a commitment that the investigating directorate will be made a permanent structure, but we've seen no action from government in that regard. So the reason I say that they need our support in putting public pressure on the presidency to say, if we want to successfully prosecute these state capture cases, then the investigating directorate need to be given proper powers to be able to do so.
Yeah. And sure, but before we say they need our support, even if this was a half-baked case and it was handled badly, shouldn't the NPA be held to account for taking the case to court? They should not take a case to court unless they believe it's winnable, right?
Absolutely, and that's the point I made in the piece today, is that both the Hawks and the NPA owe us an explanation of why this matter was enrolled in the first place. What were the considerations that led to this matter being put on the court roll? Especially knowing the public interest in prosecuting these state capture cases. This New Lane case being the very first state capture case to be brought before court. The expectations of the public were rightly very high, that we want to see people being held to account for state capture. And when you have a bad start like this, it nearly dents public confidence. And we need explanations as to why it happened and assurances that it will not happen again.
You do suggest there's some hope. Many point to the Scorpions model, where there was a lot of alignment between the investigators and the prosecutors. And you're saying that the newer cases are being handled in a way that is more integrated. So are you hopeful that future cases will be successful?
Well, we're hopeful, but as I say, we need to go a step further and ensure that the investigating directorate is given a proper permanent basis that will enable them, for example, Francis, to recruit staff properly, because they're a temporary structure. Nobody wants to join an institution where you don't know whether this body is still going to be around in a year's time or not. So in order to be able to attract the right caliber of people to the ID, they need to have permanent status. That will enable them to get the right capacity in, will ensure that those people are accountable directly to the investigating directorate and not have a foot in two camps, as is often the case now, with officers being seconded from the police service and from the Hawks.
So let's end it there. I think even the president has spoken about the ID potentially becoming a permanent feature. Why do you think there's no urgency around that?
Well, one doesn't know. I mean, the President and the Minister of Justice have given commitments that they want to make the ID a permanent structure, but we've seen no movement in terms of any legislation being drafted, being prepared to be presented to Parliament. These should be high-priority issues if, as government says, the fight against state capture is an urgent one. But we don't see the kind of urgency that I think the South African public want to see to enable those who are responsible for state capture to be brought to account. And government needs to play its part and give the necessary resources and powers to the bodies that are being mandated to investigate and prosecute these crimes.
All right, thank you very much. Executive Secretary of the Council for the Advancement of the SA Constitution, Lawson Naidoo.